Good morning. My name is Dave Gray, and I want to talk to you today about something I'm calling the connected company. So, if we think about the way that we've thought about companies in the past, um, let's say for the last 100 years or so, since Henry Ford kind of kicked off the Industrial Revolution, we've been thinking of companies based on a concept of division of labor. So, we divide the labor and in such a way that we can get the work done. So we take a big job and we break it down into tasks, and the company is organized in a kind of hierarchical, pyramidal structure. Looks something like this. I choose to represent it as kind of a pyramid. What you have is a few people at the top, and the work is divided, and everybody gets their sort of zone or box within which they work. And it looks something like this. So everybody's in a box, and in many organizations it actually looks like a box. It's a little cubicle that we sit in to do our work. So this is what I'm calling the divided company, which is really the company that many of us work in today. And it's organized in a hierarchy. Not only a hierarchy of individuals, which starting with the CEO and going down to what we would call the front line, but also a hierarchy of goals and tasks. So the jobs to be done are divided up. So that's the kind of company that we work in. Many of us work in today, especially if you work in a large organization. Now, this is actually a very successful, excellent way to organize, especially if you have a stable environment. So when the environment is stable and the job is well defined, well understood, now, what's happened recently is we've had some cracks in the foundations of this, because what's been happening is we've had a shift in the global economy that's been happening probably since maybe the 1930s or so, and where we have manufacturing as a percentage of the economy has been shrinking. So this is manufacturing since 1939 or so. And this is services. So what's happened in the last 80 years or so is that services is an increasing percentage of the economy. And since services are not, and one of the things about services is that services are not necessarily stable. Services are always changing, and services are relatively variable. I'll give you an example of what happens when we try to design a service in the same way that we might design a manufacturing. Manufacturing is very stable. You have a relatively well understood product. You have a relatively well understood job to do. You're making the product. You're manufacturing, let's say, a car. Cars pretty much look alike, or they're pretty similar, and we're running them out on an assembly line. So that Henry Ford approach was very successful, and still works very well for certain kinds of jobs. Now, what happens when you apply the same structure, but you try to provide a service? That's okay if the service is extremely simple and well understood, but what happens with customers is customers have problems or issues that are very unique. So let's take customer service. Let's say you have a problem with your cell phone, right? Or your service. You call in to a voice system. So before you actually get a person, you have to go through the kind of a voice prompting system that tries to route you to the right person. Okay. Now, as we all know, this little voicemail thing. Hit 2, hit 3, hit 9. Um, you listen to all the prompts, and it's very probable that your problem that you're trying to solve is not something that can be solved by one of those numbers, or you probably would have already solved it. But you have your problem, you go in, you talk to a person, and lo and behold, the person tells you, I'm sorry, I can't solve your problem. So what do? They transfer you to another department, and you talk to another person. Um, Now they think maybe this is going to be a little bit better, but what ends up happening is you bounce around from person to person because chances are your problem actually spans multiple of these categories. So eventually you find out that you can't solve your problem at the frontline level and you have to escalate. So you have to go up to the supervisor or the supervisor's supervisor. And I had a friend who had a billing problem with his telco provider, his mobile provider, and he had been mischarged for some roaming charges while traveling. He had to get up to a vice president before he could solve this billing problem. And that's not atypical. I mean, it may be atypical to get up to a vice president, and he probably had to wangle his way up there. But the bottom line is, customer problems come in all different shapes and sizes, and the idea that you can kind of standardize to fit a customer problem is probably an error. So now, how does this work differently in a connected company? Well, let's put a connected company up here. Let me show you. A connected company, instead of being a hierarchy, works more like what some people call a holarchy. What's a holarchy? What that means is that every part is authorized to represent the whole. So, let's take an example of what that means. Let's say you have your problem with your phone service, right? Here you are. You got your phone problem. Well, actually, let's use a company that I know of, a real company. It's called Vanguard. So let's say you have a problem and you're going to call into the call center of Vanguard. They provide mutual funds and other financial services. All right, so here you are. You got your problem or issue with your mutual fund. You call in. How is it different? Well, first of all, you get a person, a real person, answering the phone. That person is authorized, unlike the person in the divided company. That person's job is authorized to solve your problem, and they have the job to solve your problem. So, but let's say that they can't. Just like this person in the divided company, let's say they don't have the actual solution at their fingertips. They have to talk to some other people, or some other people have to get involved. Instead of forwarding you to that other person, what they do is they tap into a network of people or systems, and they can call on them to bring them into the call with you, but that you remain on the line. So basically, what happens is that person doesn't own a task. Over here, people own a task, or they're part of a process, right? Here, a person owns a customer or owns a whole instead of a part. People own the whole. So in this case, the person owns a customer. They own your customer problem. They will remain on the line. They will stick with you until your problem is resolved. Now, how does this actually work in the terms of the whole company? Well, rather than being organized in a kind of a pyramid, a connected company is actually kind of more like a network, a circle. So what you have is you have these small individuals and teams that are working together that actually have responsibility for whole things. So it's a network of, it's almost like a network of small individual businesses that are responsible for serving customer needs. So each one can operate independently as a whole. Just like this person here, even though it's just a single person answering the phone, as far as you're concerned, as far as this interaction goes, that person is representing the entire company and is owning the whole problem, the whole customer. So if you can see, there's a difference here. Now, there are still things that will need to be done in this kind of more industrial fashion. And there are things within this connected company that are going to, basically operate in this kind of more industrial, traditional way. And there will be people who will have, sort of well-defined tasks. And there are things that happen and that are going to be, that'll be best be done in that kind of division of labor, kind of divided fashion. But they'll be much smaller, and they won't be the people that are providing the services out here to customers. The thing about services are constantly evolving and growing. So, and services are also variable. So instead of a stable environment, what we have over here is we have a variable environment. Where customer problems, for example, like many elements of services, don't come in a one-size-fits-all kind of fashion. So in a variable environment, in a stable environment, a divided company works extremely well. When the job is well understood, and the environment doesn't change that much. But in a variable environment, when the job requires human judgment and creativity, in other words, people are required to make good decisions. Because of that variable environment, this kind of a company structure starts to break down. It doesn't solve the problems very easily. So what happens is what's happening in the world today is this environment that used to be stable is starting to get much more variable because customers are demanding more and more and more. And they're using social networks to share information, and so all the gaps in between these little sort of tasks or balls are being dropped, and people are talking about it on social media, and this is becoming more and more of a problem. Increasing competition from companies that are connected as well is creating difficulties for many of these divided companies. So what people are going to need to do and what companies are going to need to do is find ways to move from being a divided company to being a connected company. Thank you very much for your time, and hope to talk to you again about this kind of thing. Take care. Bye-bye.